Hi everyone. Today I will introduce to you the typical procedure for vessel inclining test. The purpose of the inclining experiment is to determine the lightship weight along with its longitudinal, transverse and vertical centers of gravity. Satisfaction of the requirements. Lightship weight. Lightship weight is the constant mass of the complete vessel's steel weight with all its permanently installed machinery, equipment, and outfit, including permanent ballast, spare parts normally retained on board, and liquids in machinery and piping to their normal working levels, but does not include liquids in storage or reserve supply tanks, items of consumable or variable loads, stores, or person and their effects. The lightship weight includes other outfitting items that are permanently attached to or aboard the ship. Variable load. Loads that vary with the operation of the unit, such as fuel oil, lubricating oil, ballast water, fresh water feed water in tanks, consumable stores and person and their effect. Personnel for inclining test. The total number of people on board must be kept to a minimum. Only people who are participating in the tests or who are required to support the tests should be on board. A list of all people on the ship and their location is to be made. This list is to be approved by ABS and the naval architect in charge. The list is expected to include ABS surveyor to witness the test, 2 naval architects to run the test, make measurements, monitor ballasting procedure and help conduct the deadweight survey. Ship persons to perform the following tasks. 1. Prepare the lift boat for inclining. 2. Assist in sounding the tanks. 3. Handle the boat for draft measurements. 4. Moving ballast water between heeling tanks. 6. Opening and closing manholes. 7. Handling mooring lines. 8. Opening compartments and storerooms for the weight survey. 9. Running and controller genset and power system. 3. People familiar with the lift boat and all its equipment to assist in the weight survey. These persons shall have the necessary keys to provide access to any locked compartments. Controller and communications. The lead naval architect will have controller of the test. However, final authority rests with the captain, who will always maintain complete controller of the lift boat and may override the lead naval architect award test procedure to ensure safety of the lift boat or personnel. Inclining controller shall be set up in the pilot house conference room. The table will be provided to record data and make calculations. There shall be an efficient two-way communication system between the inclining controller and the standby boat, the crane operators if necessary, each pendulum station, each draft reading boat. Preparation for deadweight survey. Documentation and notifications. The ABS surveyors will be given notice of the date and location of the tests as early as possible. The following information will be submitted to ABS. Incline procedure. A list of items to go on/off board to achieve lightship condition from the inclining condition is to be prepared. Vessel identification. Date, time and location of test. Inclining weight data including type, number, certification, method of handling and expected heel angle. Estimate of the lift boat displacement and stability at the time of inclining. condition of tanks, specifying those which will contain liquids but will not be pressed up. Draft and approximate K.G. Trim/heel of lift boat. The following reference documentation will be on board during the tests. Deadweight and incline procedure as approved by ABS. General arrangement drawings, tank arrangement drawings and tank sounding tables. Ballast tank configuration during the test. Draft mark location. Mooring arrangement during the test. The tank properties will include weights, centers of gravity, specific gravities and free surface corrections versus sounding. The tank arrangements will show the locations of sounding tubes, sounding gauges, vents and manholes. Achieved test condition. Test of sounding system. All the sounding systems should be tested before the inclining experiment. All Z-drive units are to be locked to avoid movement during inclining. Cleanup. Proper cleanup is essential. The weight estimate of each item is subject to some error which can accumulate to a significant value. Often, people estimate high, so this introduces a weight penalty on a lift boat. Proper cleanup is essential to minimize this penalty. The manholes of all hull void tanks shall be opened and their residual contents shall be stripped out by portable pumps. Interior manhole covers for tanks to be void or slack shall be left off until completion of the inclining. The tanks will be inspected by the ABS surveyor and by the naval architect in charge. As much deck load as possible must be offloaded before the start of the test. This includes portable equipment, etc. All shipyard material should be removed from the lift boat. This includes all welding equipment, scaffolding, temporary stores or scrap metal. Lift boat personnel should prepare a detailed list of remaining weights with V.C.G, LCG and TCG to be deducted, added or relocated from the as-inclined unit to arrive at the light ship condition. The number and weight of items to be added, removed or relocated shall be kept to a minimum. The naval architect will be aboard the vessel at least 2 days prior to the inclining. A list of all weights on board will be compiled and updated at the last minute before starting the test. This list will be subject to review and acceptance by the attending ABS surveyor. All items which may swing or move shall be secured. All movable system airs should be in their stored position. Crane booms shall be in their rests. All equipment, fresh water makers, shall have liquids at normal operation levels. All valves between systems containing fluid shall be closed. Personnel on board shall be kept to a minimum and all work in progress stopped. No activity other than the deadweight and incline is permitted. Tank preparation. Interior manholes to all voids and to all tanks to be slack or empty shall be opened for inspection by the witnessing surveyor and shall be left open until the test is complete. The spaces must be gas-freed and safe for entry. Liquid levels in tanks, for which there is no choice but to leave them slack, will be adjusted so that the free surface is relatively steady during the test. Fill levels corresponding to abrupt changes in tank dimensions shall be avoided. Communications between tanks should never be permitted and any cross connections should be closed. pressed-up tanks are assumed to be completely full with no pockets or voids, i.e. 100% full. The 98% full condition normally accepted as full for operational purposes is not acceptable for an incline. Tanks required to be pressed up should be filled in advance. Topping up of a tank should be done slowly to the point the air pipe overflows to remove trapped air bubbles. The fuel oil day tank will be topped off just prior to draft reading and tank sounding. Thereafter, the generators must be supplied from the day tank until completion of the test. Day tanks shall be sounded at the beginning and end of the incline experiment. Tank cross connections should be closed, if any. All other tanks are to be completely empty. Water storage in sewage treatment plant shall be discharged. Moorings. The lift boat will be held in place by mooring lines. The lines will be slackened when necessary during the test. Preparation to read draft marks. The draft gauges will be prepared by the shipyard and approval by ABS before inclining test. The position of gauge should be verified before each reading and can be adjusted up or down to suit local conditions, all subject to agreement and witnessing by ABS. Draft reading can also be carried out visually subject to site surveyor's acceptance. The specific gravity of the seawater surrounding the unit at the time of the test should be determined. Sufficient samples of the water are to be taken to ensure complete coverage. Samples should be taken mid-draft, port and starboard, on the surface and at a depth of 3.5 m. The temperature of the water should also be recorded to apply the appropriate temperature corrections. The results from all the readings will be averaged to yield the final test-specific gravity. Weather conditions during deadweight survey. The test shall be conducted in good weather conditions. Conditions that would warrant postponement of the survey are: strong wind greater than 10 knots, strong current, only tidal currents present, due test at slack water, waves resulting in noticeable lift boat movement. The weather conditions are to be to the satisfaction of the attending ABS surveyor. Tank space and deck survey. The incline team will board the lift boat sufficiently in advance of the test in order to do a full accounting of all the loose weights on board the lift boat, ensure the tank conditions are as per the ballast plan, and ensure the equipment to complete the incline is present. The yard engineer will start the process of weighing all loose items well in advance of the incline. They will place numbered tags on all items weighed along with the measured weight of the item. The incline team will proceed through the lift boat on a compartment-by-compartment basis to ensure all loose items have been tagged and weighed. That the values make sense, that the center of gravity is estimated, and that a proper description is entered on the forms. Upon completion of a space, they will close it off and access will be restricted until completion of the test. In this way, a list of extra items which must be deducted from the lightship weight will be developed. Prior to commencing the test, an inspection shall be held with ABS against the agreed tank condition and list of extras. The pre-test checklist must be completed and signed off by the naval architect and ABS. Reading of draft marks and water density. When all parties are satisfied the condition of the lift boat is known and the pre-test checklist has been signed off, preparations will be made to take the draft readings. The towboat should be confirmed to be on station, connected to the towing bridle and standing by. The naval architect in charge will make a record of the time the deadweight survey started and record local weather conditions: wind, current, wave, air temperature, cloud cover at the start time. The draft reading team will disembark the lift boat onto a small, low freeboard boat such as a Zodiac. They should have a spare draft gauge, hygrometer plus spare, thermometer plus spare, one water sample bucket to get water sample and one test bucket in boat, high-power flashlight, radio, pen and paper to record draft reading. They should proceed to take readings of the specific gravity at the four corners of the lift boat. Other location 6 measure points are mentioned. When these have been completed and relayed to controller, notification will be given to the towboat and the order will be given to the mooring teams to slacken the mooring lines. The moorings must be confirmed to have been slackened off. The draft reading persons should verify the mooring lines are all hanging vertically without tension and relay this to controller. The draft reading person will then proceed to the pre-installed draft gauges. They will take 5 readings, recording each reading locally and relaying each reading to controller. They should make a record of the time the reading was taken. Upon completion of taking the readings, the draft reading person will return to the lift boat. Controller will make a record of the time the deadweight survey was completed. Controller will record the local weather conditions on completion of the deadweight survey. Notification will be given to the towboat that the deadweight survey is finished. They will stand by pending the decision on whether or not the inclining experiment will proceed. If the inclining experiment is not going to occur, then the standby moorings will be pulled in again and the towboat released. Conduct inclining experiment. Weight and location survey. It is assumed that the deadweight survey has just been held with the lift boat pre-ballasted to the experiment draft and that the light ship weight and tank conditions are verified. The heeling tank locations and weights should have been previously surveyed and agreed with ADS. Reading of pendulum and draft marks. During the incline there should teams 1 monitor each mooring line, 2 monitor the towing bridle, 3 monitor the ballast tanks and report readings, 4 monitor the pendulums and report readings. The towing bridle team should be equipped with a radio and they should stand by in a position where the towboat and tow bridle can be monitored. There should be sufficient illumination for them to monitor the towing bridle. They will be queried just before each reading to confirm the line remains slack and that there is no contact with the towboat or significant prop wash. The pendulum teams will be equipped with a radio and measurement recording form and should stand by each of the pendulums. After a ballast move has been completed and the lift boat stabilized, they will be asked by controller to start their reading. The pendulum is expected to fluctuate slightly and they should be instructed to report the mean location and not one of the extremes. This averaging process should be done over at least 10 full swings. This should be marked on the paper attached to the batten behind the pendulum wire along with the number of the ballast shift for identification purposes. This location should then be relayed to controller. The ballast shifting team will consist of the ballast operator and deck person to perform take sounding /flashage and measure the specific gravity. They shall be equipped with radios to advise when the levels in the tanks are acceptable. Inclining procedure. The pre-incline checklist should be completed and signed off by the lead naval architect and ABS. A list of items to go on/off board to achieve lightship condition from the inclining condition is to be prepared and accepted by the surveyor. The depth of water will be measured and recorded in as many locations as necessary to ensure the unit will not contact the bottom and accepted by the surveyor. The list of the healing tanks and the deck markings should have been verified and signed off by the lead naval architect and ABS. The location and setup of the pendulums and ballast tanks should have been verified and signed off by the lead naval architect and ABS. The incline teams will be dispatched to their respective stations. The radio check will be done. The incline lead will call each team in turn to confirm the radios work. They are in location and they are ready to proceed. Notification will be given to the towboat that the inclining experiment is about to proceed. The record will be made of the current weather conditions: wind, current, waves, their temperature and cloud cover, and the time the experiment started. The standby moorings will be slackened if need be after notification has been given to the towboat. For each ballast shift, the following sequence of events should be followed. 1. Controller will announce that ballast shift X is about to occur, not required for the initial step which is preset. 2. The ballast person should transfer the correct amount of ballast between the healing tanks. The tanks should be sounded. ABS should confirm their agreement that the correct amount of ballast has been transferred. 3. Controller will query each mooring team in turn to make sure the lines remain slack. 4. Controller will query the tow line team to make sure the tow line is slack and there is no contact with the towboat or washback from the towboat propellers. 5. If necessary, the test will pause for the lift boat to stabilize. The wind speed and direction will be read off the anemometers and recorded. 6. Controller will advise the ballast tank team to start their reading tank sounding. 7. Controller will advise the pendulum teams to start their readings. 8. Controller will query the ballast tank team for its reading tank sounding. 9. Controller will query the pendulum teams for their readings. Controller will keep the record of the steps and record the time at which each step is completed. The anticipated time to conduct the inclining must be estimated. If too long, water may be unacceptable as inclining weight, due to possibility of wind shifts over long periods of time. Blanks must be inserted in transfer manifolds to prevent the possibility of liquids being lost during transfer. At the end of the test, controller will record the end time of the test and the local weather condition in effect at the end of the test. Cross-checking of data. A progressive plot of healing moment WD versus average tan F will be run by the lead naval architect. Ideally, the results should lie on a straight line. If not, then a linear regression analysis will be used to fit a straight line through the points. Substantial deviations of the averages from this straight line are an indication that other moments are acting on a lift boat during the incline. Analysis of data. The results will be plotted from the pendulums as they are reported to controller during the test. Additional corrections will be done after the test to consider modifications of the waterplane area during the inclinations. The need for additional data points or checking of existing data will be decided by how well the data plots. The gram will be calculated using the least squares method. Copies of the data will be given to the ABS surveyor and the owner's representative. The naval architect will retain the originals, perform the calculations and prepare the report.